Take it away.
So a lot of what I've been presenting this week are ways of interacting and communicating with students, and now assessing students using this tool. I do think people are quite nervous when they see music. They're like, okay, that is not going to work for me, and I have a feeling about that. But each presentation, as you'll see, I make an opportunity for us to discuss the other ways that you can use some of these tools to assess in your own fields. And yesterday we had this great discussion at the 2:30 with some other educators about the simplicity of video, audio, and photography that the iPad allows us to do in terms of working with students and assessing them. And so that's mostly what I'm going to be talking about today in assessment. So I'll just tell you a little bit about what I've been able to do in the classroom with the iPad. Mostly what I do is sound-based, and the students really struggle to practice what we do in class because it's in real time. So what I do in my office after class is I record all of their sound files for homework. And they have other places where they can access this homework through their online link to the text or at the piano themselves. But really, I'm able to individualize it and style it just as I am in class. So they have a little extension, and they can pause it, they can rewind it, they can interact with the sound, and it allows them to continue practicing outside of class. They then bring that work back into class for the next class period, and we grade it on the board together. So we can talk about what they've heard. I can predict mistakes. I can look at the class and know, okay, that student usually has a struggle with rhythm. I'm going to have them put the rhythm up because I bet you they had a mistake. Or this person's really strong in melodic dictation and I want them to put it up correctly. So, and I can gauge them pretty well. And then we talk through the homework as a group. And that's the traditional aspect of it, really, is just putting it on the board. So I'm able to meet the students' needs, have an extension of our work in the classroom outside. And I've done this both with everybody having mobile devices and only me having a mobile device. So because I've now worked on this for 3 semesters, I have that difference. And I was concerned because before my students had the iPad, they could just record anything they needed to help them at home. Well, now I was in control of that. And I still was able to disseminate all work to them through a recording app in Dropbox. Okay. So this is the little app icon for audio memos. To me, it works the best because it saves the sound file either as a WAV or an MP3, so it's most easily shared. And the cheap version, or the light version, of course, is free, and I think this one is $1.99. For me, it's absolutely worth it. It's better than Dragon, or I think there's a free version that comes with the iPad. It's a little blue icon. What's that called? Has a little blue microphone.
I think it's on the iPhone. But
It's like Siri on the iPhone.
I have it right here. I can't, and it's waiting.
It is, it's on the, it's after you get the software upgrade, it comes on.
Correct.
Chapter window.
That one does not send easily. Audio memos is the one that is easiest to send, and I'll show you how to record and resend out. So through this, I'm able to do recorded homework, in-class assessment, record their sight singing in class. So I do live recordings of them that they later then access on Dropbox to listen, and then they do a self-assessment of their singing in class. You're going to hear an example of that. And yeah, and that's how they outside of class self-assess. So the first sound file is homework that I recorded.
Because we're sitting there watching.
Is the audio cable put?
There you go.
Yeah.
quick to turn up the volume now. Try pressing play again.
Just play it for me at home. Nobody has the help for this.
And your volume on the computer is up?
Hmm?
Your laptop volume on the computer is up? Right, you know that, because now I don't want it. You just have to see where it's
That's okay. So I'm giving you instructions, singing to them, playing with them, leading them through the exercise, just as I would if I was with them in class.
I want you to hear the students singing.
Do you have the jack to your speaker plugged in now?
It's supposed to be plugged in. This is a student. And we always clap. So, perhaps I could. That student, so what happens in that assignment, the other ones are manufactured by myself. I can actually create the assignment based on weaknesses and strengths in the class. This is an assignment that they all have to prepare for. I pick a name out of the bag, and they have to solo sing. And so the only thing different from when I was in college is that the professor is now recording them live, and they have to go back and listen to it. And then they apply a self-assessment grade using the same rubric as I do in the class grading them. So those are two ways that I use the audio memos. It's just capturing the moment and then being able to use it either to study and interact with or to do self-assessment. Audio memos is great, as are some of these other apps that you've learned, that they have an interface. When you go to send, you can either go straight to email or you can send it to an app and upload. And audio memos and Dropbox interface very well together. I will show you in a minute when I plug and change over to my iPad how that works. Of course, there's Blackboard. Maybe not so much assessment, but feedback. If everybody in the class has an iPad and you open up a discussion board, you can use it like a 3-minute paper. If you've been in the CTL, okay, write down one thing that you did well, one thing that you struggled with. And you can have that open discussion board. You don't have to collect all the cards, and by the time they leave, you have it all filled. So people can go back and read it. You don't have to go in and type it in. So I found that that was very helpful with the Blackboard mobile learning app. Let me just show you, just very, very quickly, how this works. Hopefully this will switch over. Great. So I have obviously all of my apps in one little area. And audio memos, I prefer it on the side, because then I can see how things work. So what I had done is I just made it a test for homework. Oh. You might be able to hear it. I just recorded want to do, if I wanted to go back in here, I could rename it. I could call it test 1 and done. Then I would want to send. You push send. If you email it, it'll come up with the interface. You can put the address in there and then the subject and then hit email. Or more, and what pulls up our apps. And here, when you push the Dropbox, boom, Dropbox opens for you. It's just great. And this is my true Dropbox. And what I would do is I would pick your training, and then we've just done it in the spring, and I'm going to call that homework. And then I would push upload. And it goes right in. The students have it instantly. Do you want me to show you that again? You got it? These are other photos I used in a different session. So that interface is just fantastic for me. It allows for quick communication, and the students are prepared for the next class, which is great. Okay. Since there's just a few of us, we had a really nice discussion yesterday because there were so few of us about how these things are used. And so I have a couple questions for us, and maybe we can take a minute to discuss them, about what apps you might use to assess, and how would you apply it. So just think in your head real quick, and then we'll talk about it. Choose an assessment technique that you're currently using. Maybe a couple objectives of why you're using that assessment technique, or how it links to the assignment. What apps would be applicable for you in that assessment, and then how do you integrate those things? So I can definitely move away from this formal podium, and we can have just a little discussion if that's okay. But you might be burnt out of ideas. So what's just a typical assessment that you use?
We use essay exams
Okay.
in history.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a lot of writing.
it's a lot, yeah, they're very, yeah, right.
Absolutely. The people that we were in a group with, wasn't there someone doing like virtual tours or like mood boards that had historic pictures? They were doing a virtual museum tour.
Leslie.
Yeah.
Also, just in terms thinking of field work and stuff like that, students with a lot of daily journal entries and stuff like that about what they did when they were in the field and that sort of thing. So we're oftentimes very reflective, and a lot of times we encourage as a field director to do things like record what has been moved in the trench that day and that sort of thing. So.
And then do students get that feedback?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of, you think about it then when you're talking to the students and talking about the analysis of what you found and stuff like that, because people's moods can affect what sort of things they record and stuff like that, so we encourage the students as well to do that.
Have you talked about the wikis? The wikis?
Yeah, we talked about it.
Yeah. I think those are great ways to coordinate specific discussion groups. Student buy-in is not always as open as you think it might be, because you have to teach them about the wiki. They may have never used it, and then you're expecting them to write on it. So it takes a full semester for people to kind of get comfortable with those things.
Do you use audio memos as a way to provide students feedback on homework individual, rather than handwritten feedback?
All of my feedback is personal and verbal. So when they've done the homework and we're in class, that's where they get me. They get me commenting and working through it and talking about the problems. When they've sang in class, I've often already given them feedback. I'll say, when you go back and listen to your recording, check your pitch. You'll notice you went flat. Or on the second time you sang it, you fixed measure 3, note 2, right? And then they can go back and check that, and then they understand. So I give them that guidance, and then they send me back a grade.
Is there a way to use audio memos, I've never used that software, to provide individual student feedback instead of handwriting? You would record it and email it to someone or something like that?
Yeah.
So you're going to be like the doctor?
Exactly. You know, let's say you're in the background or you're in your car getting ready to drive away, right? And you've just observed. And you just want to say those thoughts that are in your head. Sarah, you know, you did a great job looking at this. Next time, let's focus on X, Y, and Z. Here's the major bullet points. I'm going to write you up a paragraph review when I get back to the office. Send it off. Boom.
You could do that, and I'm just kind of brainstorming this. I was going to talk about this today, but one of the things I do with my student teachers in the field is like I'm out and I'm observing them, and I use Evernote, and I'll either attach their lesson plan or take a picture of their lesson plan and attach that into this one Evernote. I take my notes, and when I'm done, I email it to them and their mentor teacher. I could also include audio of them teaching or audio of me after the fact, like when it's all packaged together. Evernote is really good at that.
Well, and I'm thinking along those lines because I debrief with my student teachers after the lesson, and so it's just here's another layer to listen to. One of the things that I do with my pre-service teachers, they have a really hard time with phonological awareness. One was just the concept of it. I don't know why, but it's very tricky for them. And in particular, concepts like segmenting and blending, they want to collapse the two, or they use them interchangeably. So I could see using this as a way for you demonstrate to me how to blend or how to segment this, how to segment this word, and then how to blend these sounds, and getting them to play with it that way, because it's something we do it in class, we practice it with kids, and they stick.
Well, and you could give them an assignment, upload it onto Blackboard. These are your words to segment and blend. Record them on audio memos and upload them in this folder. Pick someone else from the class and give them feedback.
Give them feedback.
Yeah, it's the easiest way of communication and extending the classroom. And they can do it. This has been my selling point for so long. It's a virtual lab. It's a virtual practice room. It's a virtual place where that student who really only has at 12:15 the night before class to do it, to still know that they can do it. They can't get to the physical lab, but they have the lab for themselves. But that I think is great, because you know what else they do? You have to put them on the honor system. They only get the one time, right? But if they're producing the audio memo, if they mess up, they can always redo it, right? You can say, I want you to record your first take and your second take. Because then they're assessing as they go, because they'll have to re-listen to it and then send it to them.
Well, it would also help with, because there's so many difficulties in recording children. So audio now is way easier than video or picture. So this is a way of doing that as well. Actually capturing live samples and then going back and analyzing it. Did they get all of the sounds? Did they not?
And I'm sure you have a rubric that right. Same here. It's in the syllabus. The students know exactly where to do it. You don't have to go over that again.
Exactly.
Because you've already practiced it in class. They know what to do. I think that's great.
I just really don't know.
What else? Do you have anything? No.
No, do videotaping and using videotape classes, that sort of stuff. Looking at this is really good.
Yeah. I mean, video, audio, and photos. That's all you do, which is all I do. I don't do this Doceri. I wish I did, because it's so cool, but I don't need to teach that way. I have a different tradition of teaching in my discipline where I don't have to have that. If I was in Music 100, I'd be all over it, with those large classes. So, pick something try everything you can, and then you'll be able to weed down to what is the most helpful for you, even if it feels insignificant and easy. like recording yourself and sending it to someone.
Yeah, but I think one of those things that has been problematic for my students has been that personal connection with you or with me.
Yes.
You know, and so here it is a way for me to have that connection.
You are in their bedroom at 12:15 at night with them.
Not so good.
No. I know. But really, they have your pacing, your voice. You know, yes, by the end of the semester, they need to be able to be on their own 2 feet. But in the process, they need that.
But if you turned it over, if it started out where you were being the stronger scaffold, where you were giving more and then you changed it over so they were then creating it.
I need to do that.
Then, I mean, that's the evolution of.
I could have parents
That's cool.
recording homework and then posting.
That's super flexible.
What is Doceri? I just, like.
Oh, you're not.
I haven't.
You don't gotta get the. Oh, my
No,
God. It is.
That's awesome when we all watch this podcast.
Oh, please.
We're gonna hear that.
So, Sam Matson, who is in geosciences.
Yes.
He uses his iPad as a remote control from his computer, which interfaces to this big screen where if he touches it, his finger movement is shown on the screen, and he can highlight and save pictures, and it's completely interactive. He can take the iPad and give it to a student and say, point to where Idaho City is on the map. They point to it, and the whole class sees it. It is science fiction. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Well, it makes your iPad the console, right? So,
And it's interactive and it's savable. And you can upload stuff before class for them to review. You can save what you've just done in class for them to review later. It is amazing. Yeah, and if you get a chance to meet Sam, I don't know if he's presenting again.
Not again.
whenever they get this up.
Yeah, look for his name on this website if you want to learn more about it. He's great. I'm sure he would be happy to talk with you and help you troubleshoot a little bit, because I think he and Mikkel are
Mikkel is the other one who's a big,
They're
with
pros.
us, if you want to get another contact.
Yeah, the two of them are amazing at what they can do.
We all know about it at Academic Technologies too, and can take you to the point where they don't have to teach you everything. We can get you to a point that you can talk to them about how you use it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that's it. I mean, my last slide is just the beginning slide. So any questions? We've kind of had a nice discussion. Good. Need the sound?
I do not. That's my least favorite part about the screen mirroring. When you plug it in, everybody gets to see, your cluttered, messy app screens until you get the thing right.
Where's the little desktop?
That's true. When I used to teach elementary school, and I'd be presenting on the screen, I finally had to set my desktop background to just a plain black background, because no matter what I put up there, it would cause chaos when the students came into my room. And teaching music, I get a new group of students every 30 minutes, right? So all the second graders are coming in, they'd have this beach scene, and they'd be like, SpongeBob! And it'd be 5 minutes of, Anyway. Had nothing to do with SpongeBob, it was just one of those beach scenes that come from the window. Anyway, again, my name is David Rickles. I'm also in the music department, and I'm a professor of music education, so I work with students who are training, resource teacher training programs. And I'm going to talk to you today about 2 different projects, and I'm going to start by highlighting that. And really, this is related to assessing students in field settings, because that's a lot of what I do. We work throughout our program, starting in about the sophomore year and then culminating with student teaching. Our students have a variety of field experiences. And so assessing students in the field, especially in semi-supervised or unsupervised field settings, that was something where I thought mobile technology could help out. So the two projects that I'm going to sort of synthesize information from the presentation today. The first one was my project in the first mLearning Scholars Group. This would be a year ago, so spring 2011. The course was called MUS 230. This is our Foundations of Music Education course. It's in the spring of the sophomore year for our students on a 4-year plan. This would be their 4th semester, and they've completed most of their basic musicianship courses. They've started to take some introductory techniques courses, but this is the first real teacher prep course that they take. So it's where they first start to encounter K-12 school field experiences. In that class, as part of this project, we used an iPod Touch device. Every student received an iPod Touch. I had one too. And that was important because in 2011, this was prior to the introduction of the iPad 2. So the iPad 1 didn't have cameras, and that was important because we wanted to be media rich. So we were using an iPod Touch, which had camera, audio record, video record, stills, everything. So we were doing that. The second project was also part of the mLearning 2 group, which just concluded this spring. And I did a project with my student teachers in the field. So if the MUS 230 class was the beginning of their encounter with the field experience, student teaching is the end. So these would be different groups of students. There was actually one student that was in both, and she was doing a post-bac certification. Normally these classes would be 2 years apart, so I actually saw different groups of students except for one person who coincidentally was in both. And with this project, we had iPad 2 devices. This would be the spring that the iPad 3 came out, so it's almost like we're always a little bit behind. But we had the iPad 2, which has the camera now and has all of those kind of features, so we had that device. So what I was really interested in was asking the question of how these devices can facilitate more authentic assessment of their learning in the field. In the MUS 230 class, they're being sent out several times a semester to observe in K-12 schools that have been approved by me. The teachers know they're coming, they have to sign up in advance, but I'm not there with them. They go out and they do these observations and then report back to me, traditionally using a written report. With student teaching, they're out in the field the entire time. I mean, they're working a teaching schedule. They're never on campus, except for we do have these seminars we bring them back every other week for an hour, not a lot. They're out there in the schools the entire time. We go out to observe them live and in person 6 times a semester. Music student teachers, because of their K-12 certification, have to do 8 weeks at a primary, 8 weeks at a secondary, so they get 3 formal observations at each site. But that's not a lot compared to how much they're out there. So we're looking for how are some additional ways that we can do some assessment with either of these devices, the iPod Touch, in case of one project, or the iPad 2. And so the idea was to think of, well, what can these devices do that your basic written reports or even your in-person observations can't do? So how can we open that up? And these are some of the possibilities. And this is a combination of things from both projects, and I'll walk you through what each of these are. One of the assessment options that I used, and in the case especially in the MUS 230 class, they were actually given options, and they got to choose which thing they wanted to do instead of saying, you will do video or you will do this. They got to choose. With student teaching, partly because they were more advanced and they were doing more teaching, I tended to push them more towards video. But you will hear me say options several times because they often did have options. This is an example of a video assessment from a student's observation where they went out and observed another teacher teach, and instead of sending in a written report, what they did is they took video, they clipped those videos together on YouTube. You can record little short video clips, you can upload them to YouTube, and then YouTube has a built-in editor for free, like normal free account, where you can stitch together which videos you want. And they had an assignment to put together an 8 to 10 minute video that they would send me with annotations. This text on the top of the screen was part of the video they sent me. Once they upload the video to YouTube, from the YouTube website, you can go into the annotation editor and you can put text, arrows, call-out word boxes. So what they were assigned to do was to show me an 8-minute excerpt of what they saw with their reflective comments as it was going. So right here at this moment in time, the student was telling me what he thought, and you can read about the comments there. He's giving me a really interesting reflective piece on what he saw in this moment, not just, here it is, you see, but here's what I saw and here's what I thought about. And that's what I was really trying to get at beyond just the normal written report of they did this, they did this, they did this.
Is this going up on YouTube, so it's not private, or?
It is private. It's what's called unlisted mode. So they put it on YouTube, and unlisted is sort of like the Google setting anyone with a link, meaning that no one can find it except when you have that exact random bunch of letters and link. So they sent me that link to this final product. So this is where it does make some people uncomfortable when we're working in K-12 settings. And so as I work things out with the IRB and with the schools we were working with, this was a level that everybody was comfortable with. The students recorded their videos. There is a private mode in YouTube if you want to need an additional level of security where you can share videos only to certain other people's YouTube account. We were okay with the unlisted level because you can't get it any other way. They send the link right to me, and then I can access it. Now, for purposes of anything else, like video recording, I don't know how it is in other areas of education, but we use video recording in our classroom a lot. That's something our K-12 school partners are used to. You just have to be careful what happens with that video. And so essentially the protocol for this was that just like always, the video is not going beyond your classroom and my classroom. This is not for public consumption. And part of my IRB protocol is that for the screenshots like this, there's a reason I'm not showing you the full video. For a screenshot like this, you'll notice I've pixelated out any faces you can see. You'll see that throughout my presentation. So for the research side of it, the identities have been obscured. But within our class, that's part of our learning environment that's accepted in the field. I'm glad you asked that because everybody always does, and they want to know about that. And YouTube has gotten better about that over the years, I think, in terms of giving you more options for things you don't want the entire world to see. So this is an example, as I said, of a video assignment, and this is just a screen grab from it. And you don't necessarily need to read this. The link to my Prezi is on the website for this session if you want to take a look in more detail later. But this is basically the short blurb for the assignment that I gave them. This is what they were asked to do. And then this is what they would turn in. This is just one example, and I saw a lot of really good ones. And honestly, it gave me a window into what my students were seeing in the field that in some cases I'd never seen before. Some of the teachers, especially at this observation stage, these are teachers that I may have never met in person. But they're on our list, there's several of us in the department, and each of us kind of nominates teachers who were okay with our students going out to observe. So some of them I was seeing in the classroom for the first time myself, and I just thought that was pretty darn cool, to where I can assess what they're seeing and see it for myself. Another video-based option is what I call video critique. This was more with my student teaching group in my 2.0 project. And essentially what the students would do is they would make a video of themselves teaching and then post it to YouTube. I would compile the links from, let's say I had 5 student teachers this semester. I would compile the 5 links of their unlisted videos. They have to send them to me. That's the only way anybody can see them. And then I take those 5 and send them back to all of the 5 student teachers. Then they go to YouTube, and the commenting features still work in unlisted mode. So many of us are familiar with the Friday video of Rebecca Black, who got 1.8 million dislikes on YouTube and a whole bunch of really nasty comments. Well, that same technology can be put to better uses. So we can have the students going to the YouTube video and then commenting. And I prompted them for some things because if you just let them comment on whatever, it's not always as constructive. So I put some prompts on there. And then this is just one comment, but it keeps going down the page for everybody who makes comments. You can see, here's the video. I asked them for a 10-15 minute video clip of their own teaching in this case, and then it would go up for peer critique. Also use this same protocol for self-critique. I can comment on these and provide feedback to the students. It's basically just using the commenting mechanism in YouTube, which is designed to give feedback on videos, to give feedback on videos. It seemed like a very natural fit. This one is entirely on the device. The YouTube built-in app on either of the devices supports the commenting. You're logged in with your YouTube account and your comment is registered. You can see I've obscured the names, but those little blue pixels are that says who made comments, and you can give critique that way. I should mention the previous one when I was mentioning the annotations, the on-screen annotations, that you actually have to do from a website and the normal YouTube Flash-based player. That's beyond the device. So in that case, the device was the capture and some basic editing to send it to YouTube, but the final kind of post-production, putting the annotations on there, had to be done from a regular computer. So I just want to differentiate that. And it worked. I still think the mobile device made it work incredibly well to have as the capture device and your sort of pre-editing. But that first assignment did require some use of a computer beyond the mobile device. This one, however, all on the mobile. Another type of assignment I was using for field work was the blog assignment. And when I set this up and when I talked to the students about it, I asked them to sort of think like Twitter, but not use Twitter, because Twitter doesn't have enough privacy settings for what we wanted to do. This wasn't designed to be a free-for-all. So in the case of this one, this is actually a WordPress blog. There were several sites that they could use, but we found an app that they could use for free that would allow them to blog connected to their account, but do it offline, because out in the field they're not going to have Wi-Fi a lot of times, especially in public schools. So we found an app where they could blog offline, and once they got back to the internet connection, just hit post. So the blog assignment, I asked them to think like Twitter, and to basically, what I call a live blog, a series of short tweet-like things of what they're seeing, what they think about what they're seeing, and then write up a little bit afterwards. So rather than it just being a mobile version of the field report, which was to reflect on afterwards, the idea is you're getting a stream of consciousness in the blog setting, so I can really assess what they're seeing in chronological stream of consciousness order. And so you get these kind of comments. You can see, really small things like the teacher's drinking his coffee now, and that cues the students that they're about to begin, and here's what's going to happen now, and you're really kind of seeing it as it develops. Another option, this one, the last one was mainly geared towards observations, right, because you're blogging on someone else's teaching. I haven't done this, but something that's occurred to me since I've done these projects is that a lot of the times my student teachers will be observing their mentor teacher teach, and they can be using these same assessments in that setting too. But mainly, so far I've used it in the first class, the introductory field experience class. This one was really popular for observations as well. And using the device as a camera and just simply putting together a slideshow. In this case, this was PowerPoint Cloud. Could be Keynote, could be Prezi, could be Google presentations out of Google Docs. I opened it up to everything, and each of those products has varying degrees of compatibility for doing this off the mobile device. They could do it entirely on the mobile device. Some of them chose to use the pictures, send them to their computer, and then do it. But this one, you could actually do it a lot of different ways. Basically, they would put together pictures, and much like the video, they would annotate it with their reflective comments. Here's what I saw, here's what I thought about it. I was trying to go for those two things. And as I said, I try to put some pretty specific parameters. I want to see 15 to 20 pictures, and I want you to do this with it. Captions and graphics, and I gave them examples of all of these at the beginnings of the semester. And in all cases, either with the student teaching group or the other group, I would give them an example of a video that I had made, or a picture that I made, or a blog that I made, and say, this is what it should look like when you're done. But here, this one I thought was a great example. I said, Mr. So-and-so had to do this, and here's an arrow, and doing that right there. This is what I saw, and this was neat, and I want to remember to do that when I'm teaching. It's very specific, it's very real, it's very authentic. I can see what they're doing. Here's just another example. Again, this was a teacher that I'd never been in her classroom before, but I know her, and it was so neat. It was like, oh wow, I'm so glad I got to see that strategy happening. Another strategy, this could be either for observations or for the students doing their own teaching, or really, in the case of your other disciplines, any assignment really. This is audio-based, podcasting. They would record audio clips of what was going on, their own teaching, their observing of teaching, and then once that was done, they could splice it together in an audio editing program. There are some available on the mobile devices, or they could send it to a computer and do it there. It's cross-domain, device agnostic. But the capture of the mobile device is very useful. They could capture the audio, splice it together, interspersed with their own comments, and they've got a little podcast of what it is that they saw. So in this case, the blue is the person making the comments afterwards that they've spliced in, and the black one, this is an audio transcript, basically, this is a transcript of the podcast, and the black is the audio of what actually happened in the classroom. So you can see how they, in this case, the student has spliced together what she saw, and then her reflective comments after the fact, and put together a little presentation, essentially, of what she saw. That's instruction theory, basically. As I said, this was from two different projects, and I have data from each of them, some survey data on what the students have felt about using these devices, some kind of content analysis on the artifacts that they turned in. But today I was mainly just focusing on the actual strategies that I used, but I'm certainly happy to talk to you about the data anymore. It was interesting, and as I get to the impressions, I'll try and highlight some of what they told me. Beginning with what I thought the benefits were from this approach, and I think most of them were evident. The biggest thing for me was that using these multimedia tools instead of just the written report, in some cases, actually made me feel like I was there too with them. And that, I think, richens the assessment quality even beyond ways that I can discretely quantify. It feels richer to be able to assess when I can see what they saw. It's, as you're particularly interested in, it can function as an alternative to those additional sites, travel visits out to these sites. As I said with the observations, I wasn't going with them, and so I'm now getting to assess in ways that I couldn't before. With student teachers, this was functioning in addition. It was almost like extra visits. They had to do 2 or 3 of these video self-critique, peer critique assignments in addition to the 6 in-person observations that we already did. So it was sort of opening up even more visits, right? Having the students actually submit artifacts to support their reflective comments, I felt heightened the authenticity of it. And when I was comparing their written reports to their artifact-based, here's a picture, here's a video, here's audio of it, it seemed like it really made them think about it more. Instead of just all right, here I saw this and this is what I think I should write about it. They actually had something in their hands that they could take back to think about, to heighten their reflection on it. And this idea of reflective teaching is something that's really important in the development of pre-service teachers, to getting them to be able to think about their own teaching and not just be monkey see, monkey do. Essentially, that's what reflective teaching is going after, and so this seemed to really help with that. Allowing them options, giving them the chance to be creative, really seemed to spark their interest in some cases, especially with the sophomore group. The student teachers, not so much. Maybe they were just a little bit more stressed and a little bit more jaded, a little bit more overwhelmed because they were out in the field. For many of them, student teaching is their first full-time job. I mean, they're out there all the time. But there was still the idea of letting them be creative, do something other than just writing. I mean, you could talk about domain-based learning, talk about Gardner, multiple intelligences, and I think that the mobile device and using the different media, you can make some arguments for why those kind of options can help students learn in some different ways or demonstrate their learning in different ways, perhaps. And the opportunity to self-assess and peer assess their work in new ways. This was something that we hadn't really been able to do before, especially with the student teachers. We get everybody together in a group once every 2 weeks for an hour, but now they can virtually be getting together, and my presentation yesterday was more focusing on that aspect of the learning community, that we were able to connect with each other regardless of being in the same physical place. We're redefining what place means. We're all coming together on YouTube and peer critiquing and learning from each other instead of just what I can do with this person, what I can do with this person. We're now creating new ways of working as a learning community. Now, some of the drawbacks that I noticed that I thought kind of ran up against, there are those inevitable technical issues. The video assignments can be time-consuming to get the students to learn to do it. Once they learn it, it can be really useful. In the case of the student teachers, I actually had them, we've actually done for several semesters, 2 of our seminar days are set aside for video, which traditionally has meant that they bring in, the tape that they made or the DVD that they made out of their school, or if it's some weird format, they just bring the whole camera in with the tape in it and they plug it in. Well, now we have these devices and we can post it to YouTube, so it made that even more rich. But the first time I made them do a video assignment, we brought it into class and we all commented on each other's in class so I could help them, and then after that, they could do it without being in the same room. But it took that level of training, and some of them resented that. Some of them were like, why are we spending time on this when I need help with X? So it was an issue. You just have to sort of recognize that there are going to be some time trade-offs to be able to get the benefits on the other end. And that's kind of the second drawback, that it does take time away from other things. I think it's manageable, and I think in my case, I felt that the trade-offs were okay with me because I was able to blend it with things that we were going to do anyway. But it is, there's sometimes trade-offs. One thing that I found interesting is that if I ask them for a 10-minute video in place of an assignment that I used to be able to read in 3 minutes, now I've got a problem on my end times however many assignments, right? Because if I'm going to grade them in real-time media, audio, video, not so much the photos, but audio and video, it's real-time media. If it's 10 minutes, it's going to take me at least 10 minutes to grade it. That was something that I hadn't considered before this project, is that those kind of things can pile up, and that's part of the nature of our art form of music, that it's temporal. And so I should have thought of that, but I didn't. And so in some cases, started to pile up a little bit for me. I think worth it still, but it's just something you have to consider. What are you going to replace with this, and how is it going to compare? Some of the formats generated more quality student work than others. I really like the photo slideshow. I really like the peer video critique. The audio podcasts were sometimes a little bit iffy. It may have just been students that chose them, but I think all of the things I showed you are maybe not created equal, and that's something to keep in mind if you should ever try any of these things out. As I mentioned before, we don't have access to Wi-Fi in most public school settings. Pretty much the entire Boise district can go to one of their schools. They're not going to have Wi-Fi. You go to Meridian, they all have Wi-Fi, but then they block anything that we want to use.
But they're actually thinking about revamping that.
Awesome.
Facilities.
Except they're probably still going to block most of the things that I would
Well,
want to use.
but look, I mean, if I just had access to email,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, that would have been
Right.
helpful.
And it is very local, because school districts and any other sites that you may deal with, I know I keep mentioning schools and not all of you are working in schools, but any site is going to be able to make their own rules for how things work with access to internet, what you can access, and one of the things we constantly do within schools is either no access at all or limited access. The district I taught in Arizona before I came here, you couldn't even access email. I mean, they blocked everything. And so it's an issue because it limits some of the potential we have for being creative and finding new things. We find ways around it, but mostly what we've done in this kind of project is to use the device in the field for capturing, but then the actual posting, processing, whatever happens elsewhere once you come back to an internet connection. And we knew that going in, but it still was a source of frustration from time to time. And as I mentioned before, the student buy-in was a little bit uneven. With the student teaching, with student teachers, I felt like they were just so overwhelmed, which is something we know about student teaching, and we knew that going in. And I was hoping this device would make their lives easier, but I was surprised that some of the students that were very technically proficient and were like, oh yeah, now I've got my whole calendar in here, I've got email everywhere at the end of the semester. I was blown away by some of the things they said on the survey about them. Now we spent all this time learning on it, and it really didn't help in my teaching at all. It's just one more thing I had to learn. Man. So it's not a magic cure, it's not a magic bullet, but I think it's got potential. It's just a matter of finding the potential and crafting it in the right ways to meet the needs of the students that you have. As I've demonstrated with the artifacts that I've collected from these studies, I think it can really help it assess in some unique ways, but again, it's not magic. It's not going to do everything for you. It's not going to do everything for the students. They're still going to have to learn some new skills. But I do think it's worth it. And screen's not on. So with that, as I said, the link is going to be on the site for this mobile institute, or if you want to jot it down, I'm going to Google a short link there for you. And then we'll do questions.
Because your students do something very similar to what our students do, so primary and then intermediate, and that elementary and secondary. So one of the things that we have difficulty, or I have difficulty with, is mentor teachers with two differing sets of expectations. So it's okay to do these kinds of things in the first placement, but if you go to the second placement, that's not okay. And so, because I'm at Grace, Jordan, and so we have the luxury of those 17 student teachers, 16 of them were in the same building. So, but what we do is we create smaller pods so that the two classroom teachers share two student teachers, and they just work.
Yeah.
Okay, so this becomes the little community. So I'm wondering if you've done anything with using this kind of idea, especially in that observation time where they observe, to one, help student teachers know what to look for, because that's always tricky, and then two, to help mentor teachers know how to mentor.
Yeah. You know, we really haven't. That's a really fascinating idea, and it's something that I don't really think we can scratch the surface of, you know. One thing we've been talking about a lot, we've been phasing in electronic portfolios for our music education sequence where it starts in that FOS 230 class and then culminates in student teaching. And we've been talking about trying to emphasize more using the portfolio as an introduction to your mentor. Here's my work, here's what I'm good at, here's what I'm doing. So we've thought along those lines, but we haven't quite plugged that into this piece of it yet.
Are your mentor teachers open to being coached by you? They are?
I mean, the beautiful thing about Grace is I've been there since it opened, so, and I was with the principal and some of the teachers before that, so we have history,
Yeah.
which is what
Right.
makes it so much easier.
Right, right. I think the music you would have less
Yeah.
openness.
And we have less choice. I mean, honestly, most of the time there's one, maybe two music teachers per site, so we don't have that.
Or one shared between two,
Yes.
three, or whatever.
Fine.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it gets interesting sometimes, but I know what you're talking about, because one of my students, her first placement, the teacher also had an iPad, and they were iMessaging each other, talking about lesson plans and night recording, so there's all these things going on even beyond what I've shown you. Like, there was this interaction that started happening because they both had this shared connection through the mobile device, but then when she got to her second site, that didn't exist anymore, and she, in her journals, noted some frustration about that. So, yeah.
So then the next thing is, this was part of the home learning part, so that's why the students had the devices. What happens when your students don't have devices?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I tried to design most of these assignments around, as I said, this kind of device, non-specific, and so really you could do everything I've shown you here today with a video camera, with a still camera, with other brands of phones or tablets. So I don't know how it's going to play out. But I was thinking about that when I designed this, and the idea is that it uses, when I started out, I very specifically had in mind, I don't want to get into this app and this app and this app. So nothing that you saw here today was app specific. It's all services that are out there, services that are available across multiple devices, including non-smart devices, single purpose devices like a camera or even one of those little voice memo things that a reporter would use. I mean, you can do all of this in other ways. And so I'm hoping that that continues to make those options available even when they don't have a device.
Let me know. Here's a question.
Okay.
You got your intro to music ed students or intro to ed, and you're required to buy an iTouch that lasts you for the rest of your degree.
The difficulty with that for us would be that the uniformity of use across the discipline. I mean, so that everyone would be doing something.
Well, right.
Because we've tried and we all have portfolios, but yeah, it becomes really tricky.
Because it's this inconsistent in the department on who's using what.
And how it is doing.
Yes. And that'll be another 35 years, I think. Really?
No, I think the university's changing too quickly for it now. I think we're in that.
10 years?
I look at you like within my department history, you all made a commitment to use it and do it with yours, but in departments that have varying levels of technology, willingness of, there are faculty that choose to use WordPerfect still.
Yes.
And when was that last edited? 96, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think there's anything that's going to fix that. I mean, there's no 100% in this game, either with the students or the faculty. But I think this stuff is worth it enough to even take as many people along as you can, and then others will join on. But there's always going to be that, several times a semester where I have to show somebody how to attach something to an email, often the same person multiple times. But
But we've, years ago when we had many students that didn't know Blackboard. I mean, it's almost a given now that you will use Blackboard.
yeah, notice how none of these involve Blackboard.
But different expectations of technology.
Yeah.
Well, I think I like the possibilities, right? Because one of the difficult things has been in education is that closed door mentality. I go in, I close my door, I do my thing, and be damned whatever else is going on around me. This is actually really helping to create that much more of a collaborative environment. And it could be something that we actually help to change in the pre-secondary.
Going back to kind of your earlier question about the mentor-teacher piece of it, I think there is a lot of room for developing the mentoring capacity of cooperating teachers, and I think that's maybe the next piece of this, and it can be very easy. You know, for me, like I have the KISS principle, right? Keep it simple, and also not biting off too much. But in the next project, I think it would be very easy in a situation like this to start earlier with, okay, well, why don't you capture a video of your mentor teacher teaching the first week you're there, where you're not doing very much teaching. Capture a video of what they're doing, and let's share that back with the class. And let's all analyze, let's all learn from everyone's mentors and peer critique on that. I mean, the same strategies are there. They can be applied in a lot of ways that we just haven't tried yet.
Well, and that's exactly what, because I have a meeting Tuesday with the mentor teachers for next year and the professional year students next year. So I'm like, okay, day one, I mean, like, we're going to start the top discussion. I think I'm going to, I don't know what I do this weekend, but getting it up and going prior to knowing that these are the expectations for the year. So I think, I'm just interested to see.
Yeah, this piece was focused mainly on the students, but I think that's definitely a direction this can go. Any other questions or discussions or ideas about applying these strategies in other ways?
I want to hear like history-wise, because I don't know what you do discipline-wise to, have expectations of your students and how could they use this kind of stuff.
I'm like a kindergarten recruiter. That's what have you used it one, right?
Leslie really. I guess the thing I was kind of looking forward to with the mobile technology was, I think, being able to kind of, because also doing archaeology is very physical, very visual. So the idea of being able to use the camera feature and take photos, particularly the mapping features, are very good. The one thing I've been disappointed about the iPad though is that it doesn't have very good sketch feature, illustration features in terms of doing any type of technical drawing. But yeah, I think there was a couple years ago, one of the big projects in Pompeii, they switched entirely to using iPads, which beyond the ethical problems of them completely ditching paper, it was problematic. But I think that there's a lot of potential for using it in the field, and particularly for students for keeping things like excavation journals, and being able to integrate images, illustrations, daily logs and that sort of thing, all there. I think there's a lot of potential for that.
I like to try we have MA students in MHR, so public history and then academic track. On the academic track, I'd like to try having those guys put together ebooks.
Okay.
And then with the MHR, create like those little scantrons where they put their thing up, and you could welcome to a museum and see the museum's closed.
Yeah.
Like I sent them to where the Black History Museum maybe. Right. So it's closed, so kids can go up, right? School kids do that, and then an exhibit comes through. And it can talk to them and how our students put those things together. You can update exhibits, you can keep them.
Well, and one of the things that, like at the Smithsonian, I think all major museums now have them do virtual field trips. Because one of the things that's really problematic for rural schools is access. So how do you get access to these artifacts if you don't live in the metropolitan area, which cracks me up that this is it. But, you know what I mean? So, and that goes with cultural stuff in terms of like musical performances, art, everything.
I've Skyped students' lessons who live in Blackfoot. You can't have access to teaching. It's not ideal, there's a time lag, but because of living in Idaho and my recruitment efforts, I've had to use technology to communicate with students.
So if you all create them, send me the links or let me know somehow, let us know so I can start sending little kids your way.
That would be so cool for students, a project for them to do, virtual museum tours.
That's right. Creating those.
So cool.
Yeah.
And so
I don't know, I mean, I feel funny bringing this up, but I was recently interviewed on Channel 6 2 weeks ago, and Channel 2 several weeks before that, about the work I'm doing with mobile learning. And a project like that, I'm telling you, I can pick you up with the marketing department, and they would love it to see how we're using the mobile devices with university students, and how you're able to bring the arts to rural, and you could get a grant for that. Especially if you geared it towards rural Idaho, the money is right there.
Well,
any age.
Okay.
And the story, boom.
But it's not just rural Idaho, it's rural America.
Yes.
The majority of our country is
Yes.
rural education,
Yes.
and that's the problem that's being lost. Because talking about place-based education, and what that means in a rural context, and then trying to get access to that. So it's kind of cool.
That is a big project.
Okay.
That's, yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's the problem I face too, because all the stuff I do with ancient history and archaeology, so all my stuff is overseas. And so most students obviously aren't ever going to be able to have the opportunity to visit over there. And then the other thing that I'm talking with somebody down at University of Arkansas about is digitizing, because there's been this project in Pompeii that I've worked on that did 14 years of excavation and has yet to publish it. And when it is published, though, it's going to be these huge, volumes that are going to be spent for specialists and for library archives. And so what we want to do, they have this really cool digital camera that can take like 3D images of objects and that sort of thing, and it can tell you all sorts of information about, the depth of it, if you're talking about pottery, like the thickness of the wall, stuff that specialists would want. But at the same time, yes, exactly. But at the same time, it gives a really pretty image. And so what we kind of want to do is talk about setting up a website that would be both something aimed at scholars, so like we'd organize the artifacts and stuff in a logical way, like put what was found together. But at the same time, it would be something that would be visually really kind of cool, and just something that a lay person, somebody who's not a specialist might be interested in wandering. Jason
Herbeck. He's in
No.
French. He has created a scholar website for his major research. So it has the footing of scholar academics, yet a very user-friendly and informative type thing. And you should talk to him about, because I think that's the way, especially with Google Scholar. I mean, you can find legitimate, real great things that when I was in graduate school I had no access to even. And so I think that both of you have majorly cool projects. You can have that project as a grant, you can have your museum thing as a grant, you're using mobile devices.
I like how you just gave her the project.
Cool.
This is what Well, there's this whole thing, and I forget the name of it, so I'm going to do an injustice right now, but Appalachian storytelling, basically. And so what it is, it's a virtual museum, and they're telling stories, and so it's audio clips and pictures and interviews with the ladies, and I mean, it's just amazing, this site. And so if there were a way of not only creating the sites, but then interrelating them and connecting all of that.
Oregon Trail.
Yeah.
It's like my favorite in the world.
It's the coolest thing. You can touch it, you can walk on it, you can walk on it for miles and, feel it. Yeah. It's very cool. And the thing that is amazing, like seeing your slides with the students reflecting on the pictures and the little arrows, the students, if you involve the students, they are going to see things that that aren't even in your head, and you think you've got a lot in your head, and you know what you want, and then all of a sudden they come out with this beautiful perspective, because they're using that too, but they see it through a different lens.
Well, positionality too,
Yes.
right? So I am a native of this space, and then I am not, so how I look at it is very different, because I look at Oregon Trail and I'm like, I mean, I love it. Good for you. I buy it, want it. I can walk to it, see the little placards, and I have two little historians that live at my house, and I just am like this. And they can tell me everything. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I love it. My husband thinks so.
But I mean, because you can, I'm just thinking about it.
It is just so
I like the
cool.
shifts, but I could have so much fun with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool, thanks, that's really helpful.
Yeah, because then it's more personal. And then what's going to happen is you're going to find that device and gravitate towards the things that make what you're doing magnified, right? My applications are narrow, and I use them for very specific things, but they magnify what I do in the class. And I think that's why the university kind of gravitated towards having me do these little stories on the news, and the news was interested in that. And thank goodness they didn't slant it like the education and technology issues that are in K-12 right now. You know, I really made sure that they kept it into, I'm teaching, and this is how I'm using the technology. I'm not replacing it, which is important. I think as faculty in the state, that we are mindful of that.
Not just, I don't think it's, I mean, it's a national movement, actually. So it's the idea that a thing can be created to do it better. And it's artificial intelligence. I mean, it's a beautiful story. So that's all it is. The idea is that you always need a facilitator and knower and doer. That person that's guiding the expedition. It's an expeditionary kind of concept. So, but that also means that the vision of what it means to be a professor, what it means to be a teacher, what it means to be a learner, those whole things change and shift to interact.
Boise State's, I think, what did you say, we're on the second wave of mobile learning in the nation? Yeah, we're the second big, and we're already a year and a half into it, right? And so because of that, we're able to kind of still put an imprint on the national movement of technology in education. And I think that's important.
Well, I was just at a retreat last week, and we were talking about this internet-based teaching. But so EdTech has a purely web-based program. We have several programs actually now, PhD, everything. And so is that something that we can do? Probably not. We've missed that boat because it's the market at the international, national level is fairly saturated. But can you still make an imprint at a local, regional level? Yeah. And that's where we are. And we can really change, I think, have the possibility to change what it means in the Pacific Northwest.
Absolutely.
To do teaching and writing in a university context.
Absolutely.
That could be helpful.
How many faculty would you say, let's say a year ago, for one faculty who have iPads, how many have iPads in their hands right now? Has it times 5, times 10? Because
You're talking exponential.
Yeah. Here.
It's tripled probably.
3 times as many.
What percentage would you say faculty?
Small.
Here?
Yes.
Oh, I'd say 10 to 15% if that.
Okay.
I agree with that.
But there's also, there are the closet iPads. You know what I mean? Because we have several folks in our department that have the devices that have never been through any of this stuff.
They use it in meetings.
Yeah, well, yeah, or they use it, but nobody knows what they're doing. Because we also don't do a very good job of communicating. I mean, I've been loving this because we're communicating, we're learning from others what they're doing and how they're using it. And that's so different from going to a workshop and just being shown.
Right. Right, absolutely.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. I can't wait to see your grant.
I thought you were giving it to me.
She was
I think it's done.
That's how you have to think.
Yeah, I'm not used to that, so I'm just thinking about rural Iowa. I hadn't actually thought about that. I just thought about the fact that you get this Iowa Black History Museum.
Yeah.
It doesn't have any money or staff to keep open very often, so we could go to it, but if I could put that little scan thingies on their website, a school in rural Iowa could print off the scan, and then the little kids could go to it, and they could get exhibits, and we could have people who lived through Jim Crow and Idaho and could be talking about it, they could see their
See
faces.
them talking.
Yeah, we have a series of exhibits that they could click on and have faces.
Do you know that
and
there's
pictures.
a huge, well, back when Jazz was writing up and they had all the, what are those houses called? Where the blues, kind of blues houses, but speakeasies?
Yeah, speakeasies.
Yeah, okay, and there's a couple African-American jazz artists who are like, in Seattle, and there's a huge hub in Seattle, huge hub in Portland, and then Gene Harris is part of that. And so, I mean, he's gone, but there's, in terms of Black history, there's a speakeasy hubs. There's a museum in Seattle, Black History Museum, amazing. It's an old school, I think. I wasn't there. Was it the CMS conference? Were you with it?
I mean, so you can start with like the Black history, but you could also do the Basque. I mean, that dying language, dying culture, you know, there's potential. Yeah. So I mean, there's lots of like little big projects.
Arts and Humanities Institute. You apply, and then the following year, you're an AHI scholar doing this, they'll give you a little money, then you get more money, blah, blah, blah. Humongous. That is integrated totally.
The Spencer Foundation, we not just did a call, I just got it today, for $40,000 or less grant for equity teaching and learning, doing a lot of histories, one of it, so go look.
Thank you. Wow, great tip.
You know what, I don't have my card here, but I think you need to call them.